And on day 6 of the transfer portal, 2 SEC teams failed to sign a single player. One is playing in the college football playoff semifinals. The other is South Carolina. I tell you why it's time not to panic. The sky is not falling for once. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I have some Alfredo on my shirt. We're off to a great start. I appreciate you guys joining us. I am Chris Marler, the host of Locked On Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Sports Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network in America. Thanks to you guys, and we appreciate you. We got a great show for you today. It's brought to you by our friends at Rugiett. If you've been thinking about getting to the next level or taking the next step, now's the time. Head to Rugiett.com/LockedOnCollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rugiett ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. I'm ready to start the show, and I hope you guys are ready for a good show that we have lined up for you. Probably going to be a quick one. Don't want to jinx it. I feel like every time I say that, it ends up me being in here and talking for 18 hours and going way over time. Here's what's on the docket today. There's not that much to talk about from a signing standpoint. There's actually none. There's nothing to talk about from a signing standpoint because on Wednesday, January 7th, there were 2 teams in the SEC that failed to get a commitment from anyone. And that was Ole Miss and South Carolina. Now, Ole Miss is probably a little bit busy. Ole Miss is flying to Tempe, or I guess it's not Tempe anymore. They're playing in Glendale now. They are going out to Arizona to play in the semifinals for the college football playoffs. South Carolina is not. And South Carolina is one of the 2 teams in the SEC that failed to sign anyone. We did a show 3 days ago now, and I said, is it time to panic? Because they only had 1 player in the portal, and it was kind of frustrating. I thought it was a good get, but it was like, hey, you got to start getting some bodies here. Still feel that way. You got to start getting some bodies here. But what South Carolina still did is arguably as impactful. Now, there's one of the things I'm going to sit in the middle of the fence on and say, I don't personally like it, but I also trust that the staff was doing the right thing and knows what they're doing because they're not just sitting here with a backwards hat talking in their office about stuff, and they're actually getting paid to go coach and lead programs in the SEC, not like me. So I would default to their knowledge on this one. But also, the idea that you brought no one in today, and on top of that, you had a decent amount of visitors, not a ton. I'm starting to wonder if we're going to see just a flurry of people at the end, because I brought this up before, and I brought it up on yesterday's show too. We saw this in past portal windows when there was 2. And one of the things that happened when there were 2 windows was, hey, a lot like early signing period, you saw people that came in and like wanted to sign right away. Like early signing period, almost all of the damage is done in December. A few people wait for February, but not often. Now, with 1 portal window, what it used to be with 2, it was all right, like almost 80 to 90% of everything was done in the first week of the December window. And then you would have some people that from G6 schools or G5 schools that would come out and have a good spring, and they would see like, all right, what's the market for my position and what teams are kind of desperate. Maybe there's injuries. Maybe there's a couple guys that decided they were going to go into the portal. Because remember, you could enter the portal at that point too. There was like specifically the defensive line. You saw this happen a lot where you would have people that, like everyone else has already been snatched up. Maybe there's a couple injuries at a couple positions across the country at different teams. And you had guys that all of a sudden wouldn't have been as valued skyrocket and see their value soar because there's just like it's supply and demand, and the supply is so little. And then the demand I wouldn't even say it's that high. It's just in this like such a necessity at that point. I wonder if that same thing is going to happen in the latter part of the portal. And now there's only 1 window. January 2nd through January 16th are the dates that the portal's open. It is January 7th, so we're coming up on 1 week that it's been open. Right now in the SEC, there are 344 total players that have entered the portal. There are over 4,000 or 4,300 that have entered overall in FBS. But in the SEC alone, we'll just use those numbers because they're easier to manage. 344 players have entered, 130 have signed. There's only one team that has the same amount or more of players signed versus players lost. That's Texas A&M with 13. Actually, I think Ole Miss is another one too. So because I think they've only lost 3 and they've signed 8. So there's room to grow on this, and people to bring in. And I also think you're going to see some people take advice from agents, advice from other people, and say, hey, you have all the leverage, because that's what we've seen over and over and over again from different times in the portal and in this age of college football, especially when you're dealing with agents who, by the way, a lot of times, Steve Sarkisian brought this up, in a lot of instances, it's first-time agents. It's people that don't know what they're doing and are, let's just call a spade, taking advantage of a situation where it's the wild, wild west, and it's 18, 22-year-old kids who don't know any better, and you have agents that, like reading to the pros, they're taking between 3%, 5%, sometimes 10%. You're talking about people that are taking 20%. I have talked to people on staffs that we're familiar with here and around the SEC that have said the amount of tampering, the amount of like bad negotiating, and also just the amount of like lack of understanding the actual sport itself from agents in the college arena side of it, it's mind-blowing. Like you have, they just, listen, it is shooting fish in a barrel because it's so easy to make money, but it's almost like this like bubble that at some point is going to burst because somebody at some point is going to come in and say, hey, there's a better way to do this. I actually know what I'm doing. I'm experienced. Like, we come with our agency. Here's why. But right now, there's not really a need for it to be like as regulated or as professional as agents at the professional level, because it's so many more players. It's so brand new, and it's dealing with, just, if we're being honest, this word carries a lot of negative meaning. I don't mean it that way, but you're also dealing with just a lot of ignorance, because ignorance is the name of the game right now, because you're in the infancy of this whole thing in college football. So you can get away with so much more. There's players that have come to this program that have had agents that have no idea what they're doing. Like I've had these conversations. So I think what you're going to see is, at the back half of the portal, you're going to see players either try to pull like the leverage card, have the upper hand, and say, hey, like, there's no reason for me to commit now. I'm going to take all my visits. I'm going to see all the offers on the table, because why wouldn't I? Someone's going to get desperate. Someone is going to get desperate. I can think of one time a marquee player tried to pull that and it didn't work. It was Nico Iamaleava from Tennessee. But for the most part, it works to a T every time, because just like the NFL draft, I say it over and over again, there's someone dumb enough to pay it. There's someone that's needs it enough. There's someone that is dumb enough. And oftentimes that person is the same person that is going to sign like someone for way more than they're worth, because they have to do it. You got to have bodies that fill the roster. You have to. So when you look at the SEC and say, all right, there's only 2 teams now that have more players signed versus lost, and like you're at a net negative in terms of roster turnover and all that kind of stuff, and there's no reason for someone to sign early if someone late would have offered more. Again, this is not, there's very few times you're seeing anyone in the portal say, man, that was my dream school. You don't see that. You don't see people making announcements. It was like, yeah, I know I went to Arizona State, but man, my dream school was always LSU, and they didn't offer me. And now I get to go to like, you don't see that. It is, how much money can you pay me? How much money can you pay me? We're going to get into more of the dark side of this, for one, and then also tell you about, specifically with South Carolina, how it impacts them, the people that are visiting this week, who might they lead for, and some big news about one of the top players in the entire portal itself, Chaz Coleman, and his interest in South Carolina. We'll talk about next. Locked On Gamecocks continues right for this. All right, before we go to break, do want to give a quick shout out to our friends at FanDuel. And guys, we are in the peak of the weekend, we have the NFL playoffs. We have college basketball. We have college football playoffs. We have college women's college basketball you can bet on. We have I already said the NFL, right? We also have the NBA. But before you get back into NBA happy hour, I want to remind you that the college football playoff is here. I'm recording this on Wednesday. Thursday and Friday, you're going to see college football semifinal games and then the national championship in a little over a week and a half. FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get on the action every single game day of the playoffs. Because right now, every college football playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. Here's what I love about it. You get to use the profit boost on the bets you already feel good about. We did this last week. Me and the missus, I told you this before, we don't have a joint checking account. We definitely don't have a joint Facebook account because that's the worst. We do have a joint betting account with FanDuel, and we used it for Ole Miss plus 7.5. You can ride with a favorite you think is going to win. You can also take a shot at the underdog if you feel like an upset is coming, or build a parlay around the players and moments you think decide the game. Then you apply the profit boost, go after even bigger winnings, and when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly. That's the best part. Immediately have date night on Sunday night after your Saturday winnings, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. Visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day. All right. Back half of the show here. I want to talk about what I mentioned before the show started, and that is this. So South Carolina, one of two teams that didn't sign somebody today. I posted this earlier on Twitter. It's not a bad thing. It's like there's no part of me that feels like it's the end of the world. Now, when you look at the total players that have signed from each team, as I mentioned, 130 total from the SEC. That's 30 more than on Tuesday. So that number is going to continue to climb. You're going to see the other number of total players entering the portal taper off. I think it was 330 players on Tuesday. That number jumped to 344. So you had 14 players enter the portal. You had 30 players signed. So for the first time since the portal opened, you saw the number of players signed in this conference be higher than the number of players leaving. Where does South Carolina stand? Well, only 4 players have committed or signed. That is 14th in the SEC. The only 2 teams that are below you is Tennessee with 3 and Georgia with 1. There are other teams that are kind of down there along with you. Texas, Bama, right above you with 5. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State each have 7. Missouri, Kentucky, Ole Miss all have 8. Here's why I'm not super concerned. One, because Beamer and his staff talked about this, I think, at some point today, or maybe it's one of the sites. And I apologize for not having it in front of me to know which one it was, because I always want to give credit for that. But I believe several or up to half of the assistants on staff were out recruiting high schoolers today. Now, this is what I mentioned earlier in the show. I'm a little bit on the fence with this because I think that's important. I think that's really big. I would assume you're doing that because you feel confident where you stand in some places. I also don't love it. If I'm being honest, because it feels like it also feels like you are in a situation where signing day for high school is not tomorrow. It's not in 2 weeks. It's not for a while. The hay is in the barn for the 2026 class. These are the portal, it feels like, is where your focus should be. Now, again, I am going to give Shane Beamer the benefit of the doubt and say I'm sure he has a plan in place. And it's not like they haven't had people visiting. But it is frustrating when you're seeing everyone else around you sign all these players. LSU has signed 9 players in the last 2 days. Arkansas had 4 today. That's as many as you've had since the portal opened. They did all that today. There's a couple of teams, and I'm not going to count Auburn, one, because it's Auburn, but also, I think Auburn has 12 total players. 10 of them are from South Florida that have come along with Alex Golish. That's not the same thing. It's not like they haven't been hosting people on visits, and it's not like they have not been active with trying to get people on with visits. I'll give you the list right here. This is from the guys at the Big Spurt. Again, do a great job. The current visit list of expected visitors: Paul Mubanga, LSU offensive lineman; Randy Pittman Jr. from Florida State's a tight end. Defensive back is from Kentucky. He was in, I think he's from Columbia or right outside of it. Quaysheed Scott. And then offensive lineman Bryant Williams. Love this kid. 6'7", 335. Really, really big prospect out of UL, University of Louisiana. Then you have on January 7th today, defensive end Drew Collins from Arkansas State. And then this upcoming weekend, you have Josh Sapp from Clemson. You're also trying to get Chaz Coleman from Penn State to get here on a visit. He has mutual interest in coming here to at least get a visit in. His former coach, Deion Barnes, is obviously on staff now. So it's not like they don't have people coming in. The completed visits you've had, this gives me a little bit more excitement because here's your completed visits. Jaden Gibson, Carter Miller, Jordan Thomas, Hank Purvis. That is 4 of the 9 total, and you closed all of them, right? You got them on campus, you closed them. Now, Joshua Manning, receiver from Missouri, Nate Palmer, running back from TCU, DJ Chester, who I pray to God does not end up here. And I just don't think he's a good offensive lineman. He's also a guard. They've been playing at center and tackle for the last 2 years here at LSU. And then you have Nitro Tuggle. Now, Nitro Tuggle is currently on a visit to Vanderbilt. He's a receiver that laid out his final 3, and South Carolina's firmly in there. He left his visit from South Carolina to go to Vanderbilt. I would love to know what the package they are offering at both places because he's a very good prospect, former top 150 recruit, went to Georgia out of high school. Told you how I feel about Kirby Smart players coming to South Carolina. I'm all for it. Guy that ended up going to Purdue last year, just very, very good season at Purdue. 2 years Power 4 experience, was a focal point for Georgia late in 2024, even though he was a true freshman. So those are all good things. If I'm being honest, some of the concern that I have, like the completed visits you've had are all Power 4 players. Some of the upcoming ones, you got LSU, Florida State, Kentucky, and then you have Louisiana and Arkansas State. You also have Clemson, Josh Sapp. I guess where the concern is, I love that they're getting so many bodies from the offensive line. I love they already got a commit on the defensive line. It does not feel like, to me, that we need a receiver. It feels like you're pretty deep there. I think you need defensive backs, and I think you need offensive linemen. Now, the other side of that, you cannot end this portal with 4 players. Like I would imagine you would need at least double-digit players. Like you've lost 21. Last year you lost 23, and you signed 18. It was 25. It was some odd number. So that's fine. You've also lost yet another defensive lineman, Jalen Brown. He has left. I don't think he played much this year. I think it's a former Missouri kid that came last year. He just committed to LSU. So you're losing some players that are starting to go elsewhere. I'm not as concerned about that. I'm not even that deeply concerned that the rest of the conference is getting all these players. Like Arkansas leads the SEC in total players that have signed or committed right now with 16. I don't think Arkansas is a better program than South Carolina. I don't think they're going to have a better season than South Carolina. I'm not worried about that. I don't think Auburn's in a better place than South Carolina right now. I'm not as concerned about that. But we're going to have to start seeing some of these numbers grow because it's a hard sell for me, at least, that it's a hard sell for me, at least, to sit here and say, no, we really like what we have in place. And maybe you do, but it's a hard sell. Like when you are going to be judged later on in this season with Shane Beamer, and we start looking at the schedule and the record, and like you have to start being very critical because this is a make or break year. And if they are 6-6, it's hard not to look and say, well, maybe they should have gone after more players in the portal. You're going to start hearing people be negative and say, well, maybe if we didn't spend all this money on those big 3 players, even though most people don't know what the details of those contracts are with Sellers, Stewart, and Harbor, maybe we would have had more players come back. Maybe we could have gone more, like on more of a spending spree in the portal. Maybe we didn't have to be so frugal with the money. All of these things are going to be challenged with Beamer unless you do really well. And I got news for you guys. They're probably going to be challenged and brought up no matter what. Like outside of him going 10-2 or above, people are they want answers, and they want to have they want this thing to turn. And I think there's a lot to be said for Shane Beamer retaining the talent he has. I love it. Part of that was on display today. You saw multiple players, Donovan Murph, Vakari Swain. There was one other player that all made announcements. They're coming back. And I think that getting Vakari Swain is a very big deal. Getting Donovan Murph to come back, very big deal. I love those things. But I know that the offensive line needs bodies at the very least because you lost 9 players. Even if it's for practice, guys, you got to have bodies to be able to compete. I think that leaves the number to like 8 that are still on the roster. And there's a lot of young talent there, but it's all very unproven and it's all pretty raw. And maybe your new offensive line coach is going to get the best out of those guys and way more than Teasley ever could. But you still got to figure out a way to get some bodies here. I don't know what the number is that I would feel like, okay, I feel better. I don't know if it's like, oh, they signed 15. I feel, okay, that's good. That's good. I do know that you're going to need, whether it's 10, 12, 15 players that you're bringing in from the portal, almost all of them are going to need to contribute right away. That's one of the reasons why I love the Jaden Gibson thing. It's one of the reasons why I love the dude they got. Excuse me. I love the dude that they were able to get Jordan Thomas from Georgia. I'm not. If you told me that the running backs they currently have on the roster are good enough to go, I'm in. Fine. But everyone here knows that offensive line needs to show improvement. And right now, you not only need better players, but you need people like brought in bodies as quickly as possible. So that is all for today's episode. I do want to give a quick shout out. Tomorrow we'll have another episode as well. We'll talk, hopefully, some people that commit. Like I said, you have a ton of people that are visiting, and then you're also building up to the weekend where you should have several players visiting over the weekend. This whole thing is so bizarre because it's not like recruiting weekends where it's like, all right, well, we got a big home game, so we're going to have as many recruits as possible. This 2-week window, it's like you've got guys that are cramming as many visits in as possible before school starts back for one. Then also it's like you only have 2 weeks. So it's like you've got some guys that are taking 5 and 6 visits and they're going from Lubbock to LA to Baton Rouge to Columbus, Ohio. And so there's just a lot of stuff going on. South Carolina is also in the middle of this feeding frenzy. Possible. The other thing I'll say, and we'll dive into this more tomorrow, but I'm just throwing this out there. And this, I will tell you right now, this is purely me being Homer Chris, as optimistic as possible. Maybe Beamer also is keen to the idea that let some of these other people fight these battles and overpay right out of the gates, and then know that maybe in the long run we'll be better when some of these other people are out of spots or out of money. That is not my favorite plan. I'm just throwing it out there. That is all for today's episode. I appreciate you guys so much. Before we go, I do want to give a shout out to our friends at Rugiett. And I tell you what, sometimes things are hard. Sometimes you're not that word. And that's where Rugiett comes in. Somebody asked me to compare Rugiett and what's a good analogy for what it can do for you. And I always like to say harder than an SEC strength of schedule and harder than trying to defend Dabo Swinney. That's what Rugiett can do for you. It can make you harder than those two things. There you go. Let's talk about something men don't bring up, but absolutely should. Stress from work, money, life. It doesn't just switch off at night. And when it shows up at the worst possible time, Rugiett Ready is designed to help you take back control. Rugiett Ready is a next-generation prescription treatment created to support both the brain and the body so you can feel present, confident, and ready when the moment matters. Most men are ready in about 15 minutes on average, so you can stay present, confident, and in control when the moment is right. It's very easy. All you have to do, go connect with a board-certified doctor online. Everything ships discreetly right to your front door. It's easy to understand why over 150,000 men have already made the switch. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now's the time. Head to Rugiett.com/LockedOnCollege. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rugiett Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. We'll see you next time, guys. Go Cox.